there, friends. Franki here. Haley seems to be experiencing some writer's block in receiving the details on the next adventure that we Abernathy Franklins are having. So this week, we invite back our friend Death to tell us a couple more tales of her collections. Strap in, folks. One of these takes on transgender humans in sports, and it may make some of you uncomfortable. But then again, growth can be uncomfortable sometimes, can't it? Let's pop into the ether and get a couple more life and death tales directly from the Reaper. Earth quantum physics has an established phenomenon referred to as time dilation. Essentially, an object in motion experiences slower passage of time. Don't ask for the details. I'm no human physicist. And anyway, non-physical entities have no experience of time. We do, however, find immense amusement at humanity's highly determined fixation upon the passage of time. It moves too slowly when you're not enjoying your now. It moves too quickly when you have bills to pay and deadlines to meet. Time is your greatest enemy, as well as your most precious, coveted asset. And yet, in truth, time does not exist. For the souls in our next journey, time was indeed of the essence, as you humans say. This, one of my favorite collections, is the story of a clockmaker. Names and labels not being of import, we'll stick to just Clockmaker. Clockmaker lived in a modest apartment above his shop with his wife and son. Never mind where or when, somewhere on Earth and sometime after the advent of your timepiece technologies advancing to gears and second hands. You humans are ever so precise in your measurement of time in all of its non-existent glory and torment. Truth be told, Clockmaker never took great pleasure in his field of work. He had been born to a poor farmer who died when he was young, and a local businessman took him in as an apprentice. Clockmaker did progress in his skills sufficiently enough to open his own shop, and certainly made a better living than his father before him ever had. He supposed he ought to be thankful for that, or so he had become accustomed to telling himself. Clockmaker's son, Clockmaker Jr., was a rambunctious lad, often playing with the tools and parts in Clockmaker's shop. Most often breaking things that Clockmaker had in partial completion, or creating odd compilations that Junior and his mother considered works of art. Clockmaker, busy as he was with custom tasks and consistently behind in his own deadlines, did not share his wife or Junior's joyfulness at this sort of frivolity. Throughout the upbringing of Junior, Clockmaker found himself in great frustration with the boy's abundant playfulness and chaotic tinkering. Clockmaker often thought Junior and his wife were intentionally mounting a united front against him, as if they were both doggedly resolved to be happily impertinent, while Clockmaker toiled lamentably and continuously to keep food on the table and clothing on their backs. As years went by and his dissatisfaction with work and home life deepened, Clockmaker took to the bottle, and heavily so. Gradually, he began to lose business in his drunken incapacity to complete projects. Junior did his best to take up the slack and keep the family above water, so to say. Still, Junior himself had an unquenchable desire to make play of clockwork, and his own creative projects had a habit of keeping his attention, much to the detriment of paid work. Slow declines, in human terms, can be painfully wearing. Clockmaker's reliance on drink, as it is wont to do, gave itself to anger, which naturally turned to violence. Clockmaker's wife tolerated the intolerable as best she could, always hoping her son's beautiful mind would win out in its creativity. However, the prospect of watching Junior slowly decay in this lowly shop as her husband had was more than she could bear. Shortly before the shop went under from lack of business, Clockmaker's wife chose to make an early exit and hung herself from the dusty rafters in the attic. Junior, devastated by his mother's departure, took up what tools and parts he could carry and left home, Clockmaker knew not where. Living out the days left to him as a beggar, and sometimes thief, Clockmaker slowly drank himself into oblivion, upon which I came to collect him. At the initial outset of our encounter, Clockmaker made quite a spectacle of himself in my direction, belligerently damning me and whatever god may exist for the life thrust upon him, the years of disappointment and his dismal manner of ending. Never one to be punitive, for unconditional love never is, I opted to silently allow his derogatory rant to continue until Clockmaker had exhausted himself in justifying his hate for the life he had led. Of course, this sort of display never does last long once you return to non-physical and begin your life review. We began the review of Clockmaker's incarnation with his own happy childhood. Monetarily poor though it may have been, and forget though he most certainly did, before he became Clockmaker, he had been a decidedly happy child. Most of his time was spent outside playing on the farm, building forts from logs and sticks, and sometimes even creating his own toys and games. His mother had died in childbirth, but his father was loving enough for two parents while he slaved away to eke out a living for himself and his lone son. From the perspective of non-physical, you can often see what's coming, you might say, and Clockmaker had to ask for a pause of his review when it came to the sudden heart attack that took his father. While emotions like disappointment and self-loathing are not felt in the uncomfortable way that they are in physicality, non-physical Clockmaker understood well that he had not been for his own son the father that he himself experienced. Were he still in the physical, Clockmaker might have felt shame for the man that he became. From where he sat with me, however, he had enough love to forgive himself. For here, he was able to see clearly that the loss of his kind father wounded his human heart more than his physical self ever allowed him to process. It was this buried grief that pained his life unto his death, more than any occupational or family frustration. Non-physical does not cry, but Clockmaker was positively overwhelmed by the love he felt for the father he had lost. After completing the remainder of his own life review, as many of you do, Clockmaker asked to see what was becoming of Junior. Junior used the mechanical knowledge he gained in his father's shop and creativity encouraged by his mother to create the most splendid clockwork machines. Some of them taking on humanoid shape, Junior's clockwork men could perform simple but beautiful tasks, like mimicking writing or playing a piano. Because the universe is limitless, and non-physical can accomplish anything, Clockmaker chose to be something of a spirit guide for Junior, taking the opportunity to be the loving father he once had, but had never been to Junior in his physicality. Clockmaker nudged the right humans and pulled the right strings, and as a result, Junior's accomplishments were mightily rewarded, both in wealth and in recognition. Junior lived a long life of joy, love, and ease. At his own time of collection, Junior reunited with Clockmaker, and they rejoiced in their love of the game they had played out together. As is permitted, if a soul requests, Junior invited Clockmaker to review his life with him. And Clockmaker was once again overwhelmed by love when seeing how Junior had adored his father, even in his darkest moments in physical life. Junior's passion to create had provided him the strength to forgive anything, even before his return to non-physical. Never did the son of Clockmaker blame his father for his ire, or his mother for her choice to leave him. And this, my beloved humans, is what makes this tale one of my very favorites. Human devotion to putting forth your highest joy, regardless of external circumstances, is rather one of the most magical capacities you darling physical beings have. Truly, following your dreams in physical life is among the most powerful forms of love. We in the non-physical rejoice in that love to a degree that cannot be expressed in any human language. Conventional wisdom is a unique false concept that humans have. It's one of the many techniques humans have created in order to experience limitation. And you dear humans do hold steady to such a vast array of limiting beliefs. All things are possible in existence. There is nothing out of bounds. But in this game of expansion that you have chosen to play, it is necessary to believe in limitation, in order that you might expand beyond it. In your earthly measure of years, conventional wisdom of the early 1900s was that it was physically impossible for a human to run a mile race in under 4 minutes. Then, somewhere about 1954, a man named Roger Bannister defied this collective agreement and did in fact complete a mile dash in under 4 minutes. Your most dedicated international runners now accomplish this feat regularly. But this tale is not about a runner. My next collection is indeed that of an athlete. In keeping with our lack of need for names, we shall refer to this collected entity as Surfer. Surfer was born in a city along an ocean coast. From early childhood, Surfer had an insatiable love for ocean waves. The feel of the water rushing past their limbs, the smell of the salt air, the sound of the water crashing against itself and the shore. Nearly any waking moment that Surfer was not occupied with schooling, eating, or other human obligations, they were dashing off from their home on the beach to meet the waves and commune with the sea. Surfer was born male by human physical definitions, and they did spend the first 26 years of life existing as male. Surfer learned to ride ocean waves on a board as a male, was taught to do so by a male, was a member of all male swimming teams, coached by males. They even won several male surfing competitions. As at home as Surfer always felt in the warmth of the salt waves, they never felt at home in the body deemed male. And so, by the age of 29, Surfer had fully transitioned into a more comfortable female body. Ever enamored of the sea and eager to continue competing at the sport that was their highest joy, Surfer began entering competitions with other athletes of the feminine gender, thrilled with the idea of finally being able to exist as what they felt to be their most authentic self. Of course, as is conventional to humans, this new gender-blended sporting was met with massive resistance and wide controversy. Surfer was demonized by fellow athletes, both male and female. Media commentators, both male and female, argued endlessly over whether it was fair to the other females to have to compete with a formerly male contender. After all, human conventional wisdom did state that women were physically incapable of meeting men on the playing fields with equal ability. What human born a woman could ever win against a former man? Despite loving support from family and friends, Surfer could not help but feel the strain of ever-increasing exclusion. New rules were instituted to prevent Surfer from engaging in events meant for those contestants who had been properly born as women. Some of the male organizations under which Surfer previously participated offered to allow them to come back to challenge the males once more. But even the male athletes rebuked Surfer, for daring to be their most satisfying self if it meant causing the broader public such discomfort. Protesters of Surfer began to espouse that their awards won while in a female body had been ill-gotten and demanded correction of this injustice. Buckling to the pressure of the enraged masses, the powers that be in Surfer's competing world revoked their female event awards. Of all the slings and arrows hurled at Surfer for being invalid to the mainstream, this was the last Surfer could withstand. Shortly before their 33rd birthday, Surfer ambled hopelessly down the beach that began their earthly existence, walked into the waters, and let the waves carry them out to sea. My collections of the desperately forlorn often begin the same, with pained insistence that life ought not to have been such a heavy burden. Surfer was no different. They first begged for, and then demanded, an explanation of why a creator would force them into a body that felt wrong. However, as I have said before, this display of residual human agonized emotion never lasts long once you return to the non-physical and remember who you are. Drained of the last drops of human misunderstanding, Surfer began to recall the mission their soul had elected to take on. You see, my beloved humans, many of you do indeed very specifically choose a life of adversity, not only for your own individual soul's expansion and growth, but for the benefit of the collective consciousness into which you incarnate. In the arms of death, my adoring embrace, Surfer could now recall the choice they had made to begin on Earth as a body not aligned to who they truly felt they were. Once you become human and forget, not all souls are able to cast off the expectations of others in favor of living in their truth. This was not Surfer's first human ride in a body that felt foreign. Indeed, Surfer had incarnated many times as a human, born opposite the gender to that which would make them feel the most fulfilled. Sometimes a male that felt feminine, sometimes a female that felt more masculine. This incarnation was the first in which Surfer had been able to choose to embody what felt right, regardless of what the broader species thought to be natural or correct. Now returned to non-physical, all-knowing existence, Surfer could see how this particular life benefited not only their individual expansion, but that of the human collective. It is a powerful act of self-love to choose to express as your authentic self, even in the face of opposition. When other humans watch and experience one who chooses this self-love over the opinions of others, it does often make them uncomfortable. It is a mirror of sorts, reflecting to the seemingly disgusted what is truly a distaste for their own fear of authenticity. Many of you beautiful humans allow the fear of rejection and derision to prevent you from being your highest self while in physicality. It is not your fault. It is a part of your learning. Whether it is to choose a body that is most suited to who you feel you are, or whether it is a career path, a lover, a lifestyle, conventional human wisdom often stymies what you believe is possible for you to experience. Surfer could have chosen many other methods in which to shake up traditional paradigms of human thought. The subject of misaligned gender was simply a favorite of their soul to play with. Surfer delighted in planting this new seed in the consciousness of human athletic competition, that perhaps formerly male competitors would become a challenge for the females of the species to rise to. Perhaps the unthinkable intergender sporting participation could be the new sub-4 mile run. The believed impossibility of women having the capacity to be on even playing fields in physical games with men could become the next normal occurrence, shifting the paradigm from one that once could not be to one that quite easily is. And Surfer was thrilled to select a new incarnation and hoped that in this new lifetime they would see the genders happily playing together, which truly, my cherished humans, is the way you are meant to play. Hey friends, Frankie here again. Thank you all for listening. And thank you to my good friend Death for giving us yet another sneak peek into the mind of unconditional love. Hopefully next time, Haley will have received all the details of the next adventures of Abernathy Franklin, and we can return you to a bit more levity, because, you know, that's my style. In the meantime, if you'd like to support more adventures and potentially a few more interruptions in favor of the Reaper, join Haley's Patreon, patreon.com/AbernathyFranklin. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you happen to be enjoying this podcast. And treat yourself to some merch at our website, WaresbyFranki.com. That's Frankie with an I. All the links are in the description, including Haley's YouTube channel, where I hope to star in some videos soon. So go over there and subscribe. Follow Haley on Instagram as h.overseth and Twitter @OversethHaley. Until next time, folks, much love to you, my earthbound and cosmic friends. Wherever you are out there, I hope you're doing well.